Check, check.
Yeah, I'd actually scribble it down on here. What we'll have to do is for action item 2, we'll insert discussion items from the council meeting, which is that bit, that whole bit. Yeah. It will be after. Sorry, no, Bill, what we'll have to do is when it comes to approval of the agenda, make a motion.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, I'll do that.
Time I went back to register, the rooms were like over $500, and I missed the block. I was like, I'm not.
Yeah, that's a little.
That's gonna be like my first action out of the gate of I'm back and town's gonna pay $100.
Yeah.
Right now, after this municipal association annual conference, also previously conflicts, so I missed both those.
All right, ready to go?
Yep. Andrew, are you ready?
Good evening, everybody. This is Malcolm Gorge presiding over the Planning Commission meeting. Slight change to the agenda tonight. This will be just the Planning Commission. So can we first of all confirm notification and posting of the original agenda?
Yes, the meeting was posted.
Thank you, Mr. Williamson. And item B is approval of the agenda. We need to make an adjustment to the agenda to incorporate the discussion items that were scheduled on the joint meeting. Do I
Mr.
hear
Chairman.
a motion to include the discussion items?
I move to include the discussion items from the, what was supposed to be for the council meeting to our agenda.
Thank you. We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. So we will amend the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I wouldn't, even though we didn't have that on the Planning Commission agenda portion, I'd like to go ahead and call roll just to confirm attendance.
Yeah, by all means, sorry, that's, yeah.
Bill Tomes.
Here.
Marcus Taylor. Here. Ken Coleman. Jamal Mosley.
Present.
Erica Page.
Here.
Ed Kesser. And Malcolm Gorge.
Here. Okay, to go ahead with approval of the minutes. Everyone's had chance to read the minutes of our meeting last month. Any comments or discussions? I hear a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I move to approve the minutes as presented.
We have a motion to approve. Do I hear a second? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Minutes are approved, may be entered into the record. So we can move on to our new action item, which is an update on the zoning ordinance rewrite with Kelly McCormick of Kendig East to give us a presentation. It could be online.
Okay, so let me get a few minutes to get this. She is here via Zoom, so see if she's ready to go.
I want to make a statement.
Yeah.
We need to do the Pledge of Allegiance before getting started with anything.
Okay. Sorry for the
Thank you.
convoluted.
More of an audience here, but pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all.
Okay, let's see. Kelly, you ready to go?
Yes, I am.
All right. Hold on just a second. Let me,
I can't hear anyone.
yeah, let me, I went through a lot of trouble to get this speaker right.
Doesn't look like the video is very clear either.
Okay. All right. Can you see how that is? Because I'm trying to get you to come through the overhead speaker.
Okay. If someone else besides you can talk, then I'll know if I can hear.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. We're good.
Thank you.
You're her? Okay. All right.
We can do some sign language if I can't hear you. Or just have,
Thank you.
yeah, or just have Carol repeat the question if it's not as clear as I need it to be. Is it my turn?
Yes.
Okay, great. If you can allow me to share my screen, that would be great.
This is Does that work?
Yep.
Good. How about that?
Okay. Can y'all see my screen?
Yep. Okay.
Good. Okay.
Not.
So, first things first, thank y'all for having me at the meeting tonight. I definitely wanted to take some time to go over where we are right now in the project. I know y'all have had a busy last couple of months with everything going on. And so we were keeping the pace and keeping the progress going. So this is a good time to give you kind of a, I guess, quarter way through where we are working type of update. So what we have done is created an annotated outline for the new zoning and subdivision regulations. And I just want to go over what that is and kind of show you a little bit of that. And then either this evening or tomorrow, Carol or Kirk will email you the annotated outline so you can see exactly what we're working from and how the new ordinance will be built. We have started drafting, and we hope to have a good first draft for you by midsummer, so you can take that into review and give us some good feedback on that. And then at the end of this presentation, we'll talk about the annexation policy. So what is an annotated outline? Basically, it's a document that keeps what's good and enhances that. But how do we do that? So I want to review the outline with you. So real quick, I'm going to pause my screen share, pull that up. Okay. Everyone see the outline?
Not yet.
You can't? Okay. Let's see.
I do.
Okay.
There we go.
Great. All right. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Again, I'm not asking you to read this or give me any commentary on it tonight, but I just want to show you how it works. So that way, when you get it, you're able to understand it. So basically what we do is, and again, once this is shared with the public, they'll be able to understand this a little bit more if we get that far as sharing it with them. You have the questions that we're seeking to answer, which is, and this is how the outline is organized and how the ordinance will be structured. So you start with basic users of the ordinance, wanting to know, like, what is my property zoned? What can I use my land for? What development standards apply to the project that I'm trying to do? What design standards would pertain to that? And then furthermore, when you get down the road, what would be required to subdivide any property in the town limits? What are the development processes? Who reviews action? Meaning, is it staff? Is it the planning board and commission? Is it board of adjustment, board of appeals? Is it council? And takes action on each process. And then what are options if my property that I am trying to do something with is non-conforming? Or what do I do if what I'm wanting to do is illegal? So it talks about variances, appeals of staff decisions, and then we also go through the rezoning process there. And then the end of the outline explains what terms, acronyms, and phrases mean that are used throughout. A lot of times those definition sections are at the beginning of ordinances, but people get bogged down in those details. And since we are using an online software for this, every word that has a definition is going to be hyperlinked where you can hover over those words. So you don't really need to read all the definitions before you get into the meat of the ordinance. So what this outline does is it shows the current provisions of town ordinances, meaning either the zoning ordinance or a subdivision land development ordinance in the center column. So you have those current provisions and how we're planning to structure the new land development and zoning chapter is over on this far column. So showing you here proposed articles and sections, chapter 1, and how we're going to outline this, chapter 2, and etc. And you'll see that we include those existing provisions. That way we've taken every single section of your existing ordinances related to land development, zoning, and subdivisions and made sure that we haven't forgotten anything. So like I said, we're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We're just enhancing what's good and then maybe making some new sections for where maybe you're missing some things. And then over on this other far column, we have the comments, and that's where as we go through together throughout this process, we'll make comments and make updates and have a varying set of these. So that way you'll have the one that's dated today's date, or excuse me, 5/16, I guess 23 is the last time I sent that. And then I already have some comments in here from the last time I spoke with staff about this. So as you can see, we try to start with the simple, basically the legal about the ordinance. So what is the purpose, applicability, and jurisdiction? And then we hop right into zoning districts and land uses. They'll be divided into several chapters. General provisions, then your zoning districts and standards, as well as special purpose, and then land use standards. This is where you get into what's allowed in what district, what are limited use standards, what requires a special use permit, what do you do with accessory and temporary uses and structures, and then into the measurements and allowances tables. Those are detailed tables regarding building coverage, height requirements, lot area, width, setbacks, and so forth. And then we get into chapter 3, which is going to be the building and site design chapter. This talks about any special provisions that provide character to the town of Blythewood, and those are generally dealing with, you know, those topics you see under site design, like zero lot line housing, minimum housing code, manufactured housing, multiplexes or apartments, non-residential, whoops, sorry about that, and mixed use, industrial uses, and then infill sites. So as you can see, there's not really a section for single family residential. As far as an individual house is concerned, we typically try not to regulate what one individual homeowner can do, what projects, if you will, would look like and how they would behave with their neighbors. Then we hop into parking, and then trees, landscaping, and buffering. You do have a lot of these sections covered, and where I have new, it's because you have it all broken down, as you can see, like in this one for trees, landscaping, and buffering. I have a couple of sections here, so from 155, 380, all the way through 403. So I'm not saying that you're missing all of these provisions, but I will break them down into these other sections as we go through. Then sign ordinance. It's not a standalone, but it does fall under building and design standards, and then outdoor lighting and public art. Not a lot of regulations for that. We're just talking about when and where art would be regulated in the town limits. And then we hop on to chapter 5, which is going to be your subdivision standards. That will talk about applicability and purposes of what the purpose of subdivision standards are, how they relate to state law in South Carolina, and where exemptions exist for people who are simply trying to do something that is not typically needing to be regulated by the local government. And then subdivision design standards, again, we're going to talk about the types of plats, what's required for your minimum streets, cross sections. This is a lot of kind of higher level engineering type language and detail. That way it falls, again, as I mentioned, we're outlining based upon the simple to the more complicated. And then subdivision types, we're going to talk about some new types of subdivisions that can be implemented, which may kind of encourage some annexation. And then an adequate public facility standard section, that's important for making sure that you're not getting growth and development that is beyond the capacity of your town. And then also how people can dedicate things to the town if necessary, or when that time would come. I know you don't do a lot of that right now, but there may be a time in the future and you want to have a section of your ordinance prepared for that. Then we talk about environmental management. Again, a little bit about flooding and flood hazard reduction. And then we get into, again, what I said in the beginning was the administration of the ordinance, who does what, who reviews what. This is a lot more legal information, a lot of words, a lot of legal words. And then we'll talk about legislative and quasi-judicial body review. So town council, the planning commission, board of zoning appeals. In your situation, board of architectural review and historic preservation are the same thing. And so we'll make sure that we take care of that together. And then getting into administrative bodies, that is staff review positions. And then into the development review procedure of how we do review of zoning permits and subdivision applications, when a pre-application conference will be required with staff. And finally, talking about all the different types of permits that are currently being reviewed or need to be reviewed if you don't have those permits. And again, some of these may be placeholders for future permitting, but we want to make sure that we talk about them in the ordinance so that way you don't have to go back and amend as the town continues to grow. And then how to amend this document itself. So we have provisions for amendment within the text, and then how you amend your zoning map. And then talking about your quasi-judicial review procedure. So if you've got a variance, a special use permit, which is going to be reviewed by the Board of Appeals, or if you have an appeal of an administrative decision. So if Kirk or Carol make a decision that someone would like to appeal, the process is written into this ordinance of how to do that. Then into nonconformities. Again, we talked about that just a few minutes ago at the top. When you have someone who comes in and they want to do something that doesn't fit the parameters of the ordinance, how can they do that? And what would be the standards for changing a non-conforming use, a building, a structure, a lot? Oftentimes, you're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, and we want to make sure that we provide some flexibility in that regard. And it's not saying that things that are illegal the day that this ordinance is adopted become legal and non-conforming. No, they may still be illegal. It just allows people to have a little bit of ability to continue a use or change a use slightly without having to go and meet all of the standards of the ordinance. And then enforcement and remedies. Again, this is the legal provisions of how to enact and enforce this ordinance. And then finally, word usage. So that's about rules of construction, meaning if we use the word director or administrator, what does that actually mean and who has the ability to enforce certain things? If we have any acronyms or abbreviations, they'll be spelled out in this section. And then a very detailed definition section that will be, again, cross-linked and hyperlinked with all of the terms throughout the previous 10 chapters. So if you hover over a word that has a definition in the definition section, that definition will appear on the screen where you won't have to scroll and go from chapter 2 to chapter 11, for example, and figure out what you're exactly defining. And then we will have some appendices that are sometimes referred to throughout the ordinance or documents that go along with things in the zoning ordinance, like the plant list, required notes on plats. Those are generally engineering things, construction standards for roads. Again, you're talking about diagrams and cross sections that the state, the county may require, and then what some stormwater standards are. That is the basic outline. And again, we have begun drafting. So I've got the framework set up, and within the next couple of days, the website will be ready. And then when any of this is ready to go live for review, you'll be able to see that on the front end and the back end. I will go back to my PowerPoint. Okay, so that is the details of what the annotated outline is. Again, you will receive a copy of that via email from Carol or from Kirk, so that way you are able to review the basic structure and give us some feedback if you have any. Again, the outline is organized with casual users leading into power users. So if you've got someone that wants to just know what their property is zoned and what they can put on it, that's going to be in the first few sections of the ordinance. And then more detailed into like your engineers and your designers, landscape architects who need to know the exact details, and that process will come at the end of the document. The goals are to align this with the comprehensive plan, again, and other policy documents to make sure that we're reviewing your current procedures. And again, I mentioned a couple times throughout what I just said that we want to be as flexible as we can, so that way people can still do business in the town limits and not feel like they're being hindered in any way by this new ordinance. And again, the outcomes will be realization of character and form. So one of the main things I've been focusing on for the past month is condensing your zoning districts. You have too many zoning districts for I think it's too many for any place, but they'll be based on character and kind of condensed. That way you're going to incentivize what's good and preserve what's good, but also allow for some reinvestment or some new investment in your community. And then they'll be understandable and well articulated. We're not going to have a lot of words just for words. They'll all have good meaning. Where we are in the process. So we have finished phase 1, which included a kickoff teleconference, the review of the plans and documents, ordinances. That's ongoing. I should always have that black line extend to the end, because we're always referring back to your old materials and looking through things to make sure that we're cross-checking our work. And then we will be conducting additional interviews. I have some people that missed the ability to speak to us when we did those series of meetings and interviews, so may have a couple more to hop on here at the end of phase 1. And then we again are, I said 25% through, and that's because phase 1 is about 25% of the project. So we are now moving into phase 2. Encode is currently set up online. It's not been sent to you guys to see live yet, because we're still just making sure everything and all the links work correctly. And then again, midsummer, I would like to deliver module 1 of the ordinance, so that way you can see what we've written and make sure we're all on the same page before we get into a lot more detail with module 2. And that'll be about half the ordinance at first, and then the second half will come in about mid-fall. So we will do presentations and facilitate discussions on everything that we write. As you can see there, we will have 4 of those. and the starred ones are town council and planning commission in person, and then the ones with the little circles and squares are going to be teleconferences. So we'll do 2 in person and 2 Zoom meetings with you guys. And then delivery of the annexation policy comes sort of at the end of that process, but I do want to talk about where we're thinking with that right now in just a moment. And then any revisions to those modules. So obviously you're not going to, well, you might, but most of our clients will get copies and they'll have some feedback, and we'll make some revisions, edits, and changes, and make sure that we have everybody on the same page before we move forward with phase 3, which will be the public review and comment period. Again, all this process will be open to the public along the way, where again, you're holding this at a meeting tonight where the public is welcome and maybe attending. So we are not keeping any of this process in the dark, but we are just making sure that we have good facilitated discussions with town council and planning commission. So that way the people that are most well versed in using these documents are on the same page. And then we'll go through an official public comment that's going to be required by South Carolina state law before you're able to enact a new zoning ordinance or land development regulation, is to have that public comment period. That will be an official public meeting. And then after that is done, we'll go through the official public hearings and publish a final ordinance, and then train the staff and the planning team on how to use this and how to update it once the project is finished. All right, let's see. Okay, so we're here at the end again of the first, this is a recap of the previous slide. We're at a decision point where once I start delivering Module 1, that will include the zoning districts, the use table and standards, general provisions, signs, and definitions. You'll need that information in order to, and once we're agreed on all of that, then it lends itself into parking, landscaping, etc. We've got to get those zoning districts nailed down and correct before we start applying standards that fall in Module 2 to those districts in Module 1. Again, another version of where we are. I feel like it's a lot of information and a lot of gathering, a lot of work, where we are kind of over here in the office and doing a lot of writing, heavy up front. And then we kind of boil down as we get towards the end, where we're kind of, I guess I'm moving past that annotated outline phase now and more in that collaborative drafting, where I'm going to be asking questions of staff and asking for some feedback from them on, does this sound right? How does this look? And then in the next few coming months, you'll be seeing those things as well. Okay. Before we move on to the annexation policy, I'll stop sharing real quick so y'all can see me. Any questions about the annotated outline or the process of how that will work?
Kelly, it looks real good to me. I'd be interested in my colleagues' first impressions.
Thank you.
You're adding a lot of new sections, and I'm just curious whether you see that as just improving the clarity and the navigation through the ordinance, or is it actually going to increase the sort of size and content of the ordinance?
I think it really improves readability in the sense that when you have an online ordinance, it's a lot easier to click through one section to the next and not have these long paragraphs of information under one section. So like I said, while they may say new, you may have that information already contained within one big chapter at the first bullet point, but we're going to break that down into separate sections. So when you are cross-referencing, I mean, some of those sections may only be 2 sentences and some may be 10 pages. It just kind of depends. And there may be some best practices that I can take from other work in South Carolina or just from general knowledge of, planning to apply to your community, that things that you don't have that you may want to improve upon.
Thank you.
So not just a reorganization, but also, making sure that we have the best outcome for you that we can when we're finished.
Very good. Commissioners, any other questions?
Chair.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
I'm going to go back to sharing again, and then we're going to
Kelly,
talk about
Kelly.
Hang on, Kelly.
Yep.
I just wanted to say, largely Kelly's been working by herself to get to this point, but from here on out, there's going to be a lot more interaction. And as y'all know from seeing Richland County and their land development code, which was much delayed because of when they started to marry up the zoning districts and what were allowed with the zoning map. That's when people got really interested, when their own property was being affected. They didn't really pay much attention before then. So I just encourage you to pay close attention because that will cause a lot of delays. And everyone kind of says, "Oh yeah, that's good," and then find out that it wasn't. So just knowing that that's kind of going on right outside the town, that the more we can kind of visualize what's being proposed early, then we get a better product in the long run. So
Thank you for that. I think that's a very important point. And yeah, we need to be really objective in looking at the changes in the narrative and fully understanding what those implications are. And I'm sure Kelly will help us with that. So thanks again.
Yes, definitely. It's always interesting to see how public reacts when we, come out with some information about how to condense zoning. And our goal is not really to take anything away from anyone, but to allow more flexibility and creativity for property owners and for newcomers or developers coming into your community to fit into a character mold instead of just, one of your 20 current, zoning districts. So that's what we're after. But moving on to what is an annexation policy. So you have one now a little bit. And what we're trying to think about is that it's going to be a guiding document for how a municipality plans to extend its boundary. My little graphic there, it's not Blythewood, and that's not Carol's hand with some fancy pin cushions that he's trying to stick into areas of specificity to annex. But it's just a graphic representation of you have a lot of growth in certain areas that may be outside of your municipal boundary. And how do you target getting those areas to annex into the town when you don't have a definite way to force them to annex in? So I have been studying case studies of places around South Carolina, because obviously state law is most pertinent there, of how it's important to attract new people and make sure that they do want to come into your community. And if they are going to come into Blythewood, what are the benefits? Or if they don't, what are the ramifications of them not coming into Blythewood? Can they be annexed by someone else? Like, for example, the city of Columbia, if they choose not to annex into Blythewood, what would happen to them in the long run? What happens, or what are the ramifications of staying in Richland County? It's kind of making people aware, and the policy direction right now is heading towards understanding what it means to be in Blythewood versus Richland County or versus the city of Columbia, which actually could be a reality for some people. So that's where we're headed with that. Again, the study's kind of currently underway, and we will present a draft of that annexation policy with Module 1 and then update it to go along with that for Module 2.
All sounds good. Commissioners?
And any questions about that right now? I know that's kind of vague, but it's been a very difficult, a lot of thinking is going in and underway right now with making an annexation policy when you don't have a carrot per se to force people to annex.
I think we're all interested to see how that narrative plays out, and how we can use that as an encouragement, identifying what the pros and cons are as objectively as possible. So that's
right. And another process I've been undertaking is actually looking at reality of, that sounds very theoretical, and I'm looking at reality of what property in or near Blythewood could in reality be annexed by the city of Columbia. What property in reality in Richland County should stay there, or what should come into Blythewood? What is an intelligent way to think about the mapping of annexation, and not just, whatever comes up. We want to make sure we have a strategy for when a property would be developed, if it's in the county or if it's going to come into the town limits. Is it something that is beneficial to the town? Do you want it in the town? Do you want to annex it, or does it become a liability? Really important things to take into consideration when you are not massive. So
be a great opportunity to apply some serious thought to those very issues. Thanks
Yes,
again.
and the next presentation, I'll be there in person. Maybe we'll have a longer workshop
Right.
with all of council and town, the planning commission, so we can, have a back and forth, and that'll be a lot longer because we'll have data and information to present. Again, like Carol said, it feels like I'm in my little silo writing over here and working, but it takes a long time at the beginning to really fully grasp and understand, everything that is needed.
Absolutely.
I'm excited. It's going really well. I'm really pleased.
Good. All right. Well, with that, I think we can let you go. And
Thank you so much. I hope y'all have a wonderful evening. I know school's out, and I'm sure you're ready to get home to some
the
little
weather's
ones. For some of you.
too, so that's a bonus.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.
Hey, Kelly.
Very good. Okay, we can now move on to the second part of the discussion item. This is an update on the rural projects relating to Scout Motors with Alison Bush.
And Brooks Bickley from South Carolina DOT. Yeah, y'all can come up to the podium. Got a clicker up there. I'm not sure if it has a pointer. Grab what? Oh, okay, sure. Just tell me which attachment you need.
Whichever one you want to click on first.
Okay.
I am always either really close or really far away from the microphone, so just do this or this if I'm not sounding right. So I'm with Thomas & Hutton, and we are contracted with the county to do widening of Blythewood Road and Community Road projects. We are also going to be installing a new county road through the north section of the property.
Sorry, I'm just doing this so it gets on YouTube.
Okay. So looking at Community Road first, we're going to be widening the entire length from Blythewood Road down to Highway 21. We're going to be tying into the current Penny project, which is installing a new roundabout at Community in Blythewood. We have actually worked with them so that they can modify their design. As of right now, it was permitted to tie into a 2-lane community road. They're working on a redesign to tie that into a 4-lane cross-section, which is what we will be widening Community Road to. So what you can see here, we're going to be installing, can I walk up? Is that going to be easy?
Yeah, is there, does that have a pointer?
What's the magic button here? Oh, here we go. Okay. Okay. So this is going to be the new north axis that the county will own. You can see here it's going to tie into Community Road and Blythewood. This will be a 4-lane road. It's going to go down to a new roundabout that will then have a new driveway into the Scout property from there. This will also be a short county road that will go into the Scout property. As of right now, their current layout proposes a new training center, so that's why we're going to have a county road to tie into that training center for new employees or new prospective employees for the plant. We are going to look at a new interchange here. I'm not going to talk about this much because this is going to be handled by DOT, and Brooks can go over that. So this is kind of a rough layout. Don't hold me to this. This may not be the final project or the product. So we are going to have to relocate a portion of community just to get around the new interchange. You probably are aware that there is going to be a new rail bridge going over I-77. I don't have a lot of details on that. That would be Norfolk Southern that's going to be installing the new line. It's going to be coming from Highway 21, the other side of Highway 21, down across into the site. And then when you continue down, we are going to make improvements down here at the intersection. Looks like it's cut off a little bit. The intersection of Community and Highway 21. We are in the process of doing a traffic study right now that should be completed in the next week or two. So once we have that traffic study, it can give us final recommendations of what actual improvements need to be done. What we think at this time is right now, with community just being a 2-lane, you know, you come down here and you can make a left or a right. What we think is going to be required is that we install a second left turn lane. And then we would have to modify Highway 21 to accept that traffic. Are there any questions for Community Road?
I can send you these so y'all can study them more after the meeting.
It is, you said there's 21 right there where Community Road meets at?
That's correct.
Okay.
Right here.
You said a second turn lane. Good copy.
I have a question. On the left says proposed north access road.
That's right.
Is that the road that will connect like Syrup Mill Road?
That's correct. It starts at Syrup Mill here, and then will be just south of the new roundabout that the Penny is installing.
Commissioner Malcolm?
Yeah.
So this timeline on these roads, I'm sure, are more aggressive than what we're going to see on the other side of the interstate with regards to the cluster of traffic that we have going on Blythewood Road. So is there any proposal or discussion with SCDOT or Richland County in regards to all of this equipment and staffing already being here to go across the interstate and flush that out at the same time?
So there is a dollar amount that Department of Commerce is providing to do additional road work. The county is not going to be handling that. I'll let Brooks speak to that because all of those roads, pretty much all these roads are DOT except the new access road. So I'll let him update you on anything else on the east side.
Carol, has there been any discussion from the town's perspective? I know at one time, I think Councilman Rich was going to these meetings for us, and so I don't know if some of that conversation has turned differently now that we've got this all going on.
I'll have to follow up with him. I haven't seen a whole lot from the Penny side in kind of reacting to what's being planned by DOT. But yeah, I mean, there needs to be some interaction there.
Yeah, the 5 o'clock traffic getting off on Blythewood Road is, severely hazardous. Like, I'm literally having to look in my rearview mirror to see if I'm going to get run over or not by, the slow lane of traffic. So that's and I know a lot of this is supposed to ease some of that, with regards to it, but, it just makes,
Yeah. Yeah, Mike gets more detail from me after the meeting.
I've also got a question. With school being out now, we're looking at about 2 months of lower traffic without parents commuting, carrying kids to school, and less school buses. How is that? How is like the next 60 days going to impact the effort being done on the road expansion? Can we look forward to some improvements before school lets, or by the time school lets back in, or is that reaching too far?
Unfortunately, no. Fortunately, we did get traffic counts in before school was out. That was really important to make sure we get the kind of the worst case scenario for traffic. So we do have that, and that's going to help us, get the best results we can for our design. As far as any construction starting, we are looking at the beginning of next year before we really think we can get through design, permitting, and any right-of-way acquisition. So that would probably be the soonest that any construction would start.
All right, thank you.
One other question. The railway that's coming across 21 right there, is that before the substation at that point where 555 meets US 21?
I think we have another slide that might show that in more detail. Exactly where the rail is coming across. When Brooks speaks, you'll see it more clearly. That'll be, yeah, the northern, the part on the upper side as this map is shown to the east. But we got another map that will show that more clearly. So Alice is just showing the community road improvements for the most part. So.
And I'm sorry, one other question.
Can you speak into the mic? I'm missing. There we go.
Is any of the widening and extension, where does it end? Going away from the interstate on Blythewood Road?
I think Muller,
Muller? Okay.
right? Aren't y'all going to, isn't the widening going to go all the way down to Muller eventually?
Yeah, and if you're done with community, we can jump to the Blythewood slide if you would like.
Okay, all right. Let me, that,
Here you go.
is that it?
That's correct. So Surrett Mill is where the Penny project will be stopping. They're going to be doing improvements as needed and kind of stub out with their 5-lane and taper back down to the 2-lane right here. Our project will pick up there and go all the way down to Muller, carry the 5-lane down to Muller, and a little past before it tapers back down to the 2-lane. And then we will be doing improvements from Muller, most likely up to the school entrance, if not a little further past it. That, again, will be based on what the traffic study tells us we need to do. But at this time, we do feel that we will be installing a second left turn lane from Muller onto Blythewood Road. We know that the traffic school there is already horrible, so we do believe that's going to help alleviate that traffic. Sorry. We are, again, coordinating with Richland County Penny, and we have also met with the utility companies in this area. They are going to have to do some relocation here, so we are trying to get with them. We've given them the approximate footprint so that they can go ahead and accommodate, if possible, go ahead and move their utilities out even further so that they don't have to come back and do a second relocation. And again, this is where the north entrance will tie into across from Surrett Mill. Any questions?
I believe that entrance has already been dug out, hasn't it, into the site where your arrow is now, around that area. That's already been excavated.
I am not sure that the Penny they may have cleared out a little bit, maybe stored some equipment there, but
Right.
I don't believe they were installing a stub out with their project, but I could be wrong.
Is this information going to be on the Scout website, or is it going to be with town?
Yeah, we will send it to you and we'll put it on the website.
I think that's going to be a very useful point of reference for most people, scoutblythewood.com, looking at it daily for updates.
That's very true. And we can, as our design goes and we get the traffic study back, we can certainly provide, updated layouts for the website.
I think it'll be really helpful.
When do you anticipate getting those studies back?
It should be in the next 2 weeks.
Very good. Any other questions from the commissioners? So, Alison, thank you. I appreciate the insights. And
Hey guys, I'm a little bit louder than her, so if I need to back away, let me know. But I appreciate you letting us come out here and kind of tell you a little bit about what we're here doing. Essentially, the DOT has been tasked with providing the roadways needed to cover the additional traffic that you guys are facing, as well as what's coming from the Scout Motors development. What you can see in green here, what you've got in green up here is going to be the Scout development itself. Now, this includes Phase 1 and Phase 2 build-out that they're proposing. All of this is available. You mentioned the Scout Motors website. You can actually see this. lot of drawings they have on their website. I think you might have been talking about Scout Blythewood.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Scout Motors actually has a lot of these drawings on their website that you can access directly. They got color renderings of all of this area. And they've got some preliminary drawings that I'm going to be showing you right here on this map. Again, all of this is very preliminary, not based on, we're still waiting on final traffic volumes and final traffic numbers. But essentially what you see here in blue, or it could be gray on this screen, I guess, what you see in gray is what the Department of Transportation is responsible for upgrading here. So I'm going to start here with the new exit 26 overpass interchange. It'll be an overpass over I-77 with, and it's proposed again to have a roundabout on each side of that interchange. Now, this is alternative. This is the first alternative that we're analyzing right now for this project. This is a design build project, so we will have conceptual plans and a preferred alternative. Those can be modified slightly when the design build team takes over and begins design and construction. But essentially what we've got here is a new interchange, exit 26, with a tie to Community Road. And that's what Allison was talking about before with a little bulb out here. It also ties into the Scout site. And we come across, we've got a new connector road going from I-77 over to US 21, Wilson Boulevard. Now, you'll notice here, Wilson Boulevard, US 21 normally, currently goes right here. This is the existing US 21. The rail spur that's going to feed the Scout development that she showed earlier was proposed as an at-grade crossing here. In order to avoid an at-grade crossing, just to clarify, that means when you're driving down the road, a train can cross in front of you with, you'd have the signs and you'd stop. So in order to avoid an at-grade crossing here, we're proposing, one alternative is to reroute US 21 around and go over the rail, an overpass over the rail, and then tie back in to US 21 just past the power substation you were asking about and Faro Road. So Faro Road would be realigned to tie into US 21, and we would go over the rail and around. Now, this connector road that would be coming from the interchange would then go down and would tie to that realigned US 21. Another part of this project for DOT would be the widening of I-77 northbound, and that would be starting prior to exit 20, the future exit 26, just after exit 25, where it actually necks down from 3 lanes to 2 lanes in the northbound direction. We would continue that third lane north to give additional capacity to I-77. And that potentially could be ending at Blythewood Road, exit 27, or could be continuing on for a short period of time. And that's dependent on our traffic numbers that we're still waiting on. Currently, as it sits, there are no improvements slated for US 21 in Blythewood or coming over here. We're trying our best not to get into the US 21 interchange. Now, this is all coming down to the traffic numbers. We're waiting on that. That will be what tells us how far the extent of this project goes. Same goes for exit 25, US 21. We are doing our best to try to avoid total mix-up of that interchange. And we are trying to include that additional traffic and try to alleviate some of the traffic congestion that's happening at these other 2 interchanges with the new interchange. I think that covers DOT's portion of this section. We got questions?
Where's 24 at? I see you say 26. Is 26 right there where the sign is?
I'm sorry, yes. The new interchange will be 26.
And where's 24? Right there where it comes past us?
I'm sorry, I said exit 25.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah. You meant, right.
Exit 24. Yes. US 21.
And then that spur still, I'm not sure where it's coming out for the train. Is that I knew keep on coming down to 21.
Yes.
Where 21 and Wilson's supposed to be split. Where is that
So
location?
that's actually right by, is it Reimer Pond? No.
Yeah, I see Reimer Pond look like by that area, but I can't really tell.
Kind of across from Boomer Road.
Boomer Road,
kind of-
yes, Boomer Road.
Okay.
Yes, there's a potential where the entrance to Boomer Road may be shifted down toward Blythewood about 150, 200 feet possibly. There's still, again, these are all very preliminary. Just to give you an idea, we've been working on this for about 2 months now. So that was when I heard about this project so it's been a very fast pace, and we're trying to share everything we can and make sure that everybody's got a hand in the game.
I've also got a question. So I know the traffic study will be based on what exists, but will the traffic study be taking into consideration upwards of 600 or more families coming to Blythewood with new construction?
For sure. The traffic studies take into account existing traffic as well as the trips generated by the Scout development. So that accounts, traffic studies are a little over my head, but I know that they talk about the trips generated by the employees, the construction, the contractors, also just not even the people that are here building, but the people building all of the parts for the actual facility.
And I'm speaking in terms of new residential development. We've got at least 1,000 families coming to Blythewood, and traffic is already jacked up.
Sure. And that's been something that we have been noted. I've got 2 people in our office that actually live in Blythewood, and they've repeatedly harked those concerns. I agree. Our goal is, our goal is to manage your money and our money and everybody's money, but we're trying to do the best we can to manage that traffic and still keep it at a reasonable amount of money, definitely. Any other questions? Oh, yes. US 21 is to remain 2 lanes all the way. Currently, the US 21 reroute, I think, is I don't want to say exactly, but I want to say it's a 3 or a 5 lane section is what we're proposing for that section. I think where this realignment ties in, somewhere down here, this is a 5 lane section, if I remember right.
What about DMV?
Coming off the intersection, off the interstate. It's got 2 lanes each direction for a little while.
For a little bit right there at the interstate, I believe.
Yeah. All of the lane widths and our footprint in general will be much more clearly understood once we understand the traffic volumes that we're faced with.
I appreciate it, Brooks. I think we've probably gone as far as we can at this early stage, and you'll be very welcome to come back.
I understand.
Numerous times, no doubt.
Definitely. I will probably be back, I'm sure.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Very good. So I think that concludes our discussion items. So I think we're ready to move on to the action item, which is discussion and approval of Ashley Oaks Phase 9B, the bonded plat. Mr. Williamson, could you just set that up for us, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair, let me see if I can call that up. Basically, this is sort of a technicality that's in the ordinance that the bonded plat is approved by Planning Commission. The bond estimate for Ashley Oaks was approved by Town Council at the last meeting, but this bonded plat consists of 47 single-family residential lots on 32.12 acres, and we reviewed it to make sure it matches the preliminary plat that was approved by Planning Commission, and so it's in accordance with what was already been approved. So
Thank you, I appreciate that. I can speak to this topic a little bit. I'm a resident of Ashley Oaks as well. This is the last part of the development, phase 9B. Once this is completed, that completes the entire program of development for Ashley Oaks. If there are no other questions or comments, is there a motion to approve the plat?
We're looking at about 2/3 of an acre per plot.
That's typically the size.
Yeah, and the minimum.
They're a good size.
The minimum lot size is 20,000. So
The current developer has followed the original plans as laid out back as far as 2000, I think, when the first plans were drawn up.
Go ahead. Lot, what, 170 lots, 171 are not gonna be there? Can't really, is it not?
Or do they already exist?
I'd need Mr. Williamson to clarify that, but I think that is the end of a different phase.
I believe so. I think they've just outlined where this phase is, and they just showed the adjacent properties.
So this is certainly the last corner of the upper right-hand side of that development.
Yeah, 172, I'm with you.
So I think we had a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
I second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. The plat is hereby approved. We can now move on to any open citizens' comments.
No one signed up.
Appear to be any, in which case I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
A second.
A motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.